Okay, welcome to another Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-Shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. Of course, most of you already know that because you're regulars. And sorry, still getting my stuff together here. All right, so again, I try to run these things just like if you showed up for class. And I know most people are like moving around and doing all kinds of physical stuff in class, but you know what? One of the things I learned from the master teachers in Japan was there's another side to training. And very often after class, um, the seniors would sit around a small table, like in Sumaya Sensei's class or in Trey Sensei's class. We would do it like during a break in between things. Obviously, in Hatsumi Sensei classes, people would do that as well. And people would ask questions and things like that. And the teacher would speak, right? But there was no physical demonstration. There was a discussion more about things that we talk about during our Monday Kuden podcast, or more of the strategies and tactics and principles and concepts and those kind of things that underpin everything that make them work. Okay. And so here we are, right, doing that kind of thing. They didn't have whiteboards, generally speaking, but uh, the lesson still got conveyed just the same. Okay, so if you're new to Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday and you're looking for another dancing monkey to demonstrate even more techniques that you can binge watch, not the place, right? We've got plenty of those things on the YouTube channel, but that's not what this is for. This is to cover the strategy and tactics, principles and concepts and whatnot, again, that underpin things and set us up for doing better when we get involved with the physical techniques. Okay. And so that being said, right, what we're going to do is take a look at today the power of the uke, or the role of the uke. And this is a part one. This is a part one, and I don't know how many I'm going to end up doing with these. At the moment in my head, I have mapped out three, but because there's three levels, generally speaking, of training, if we use the Shuhari model. But we're going to take a look at level one during this one. But this is what I call building the other half of training. Okay. And so we're going to take a look at strategies and tactics for doing that, for being a better uke. And before anybody gets all like pissy, right, we're going to talk about how a lot of people get this part wrong. Okay. But within Keiko, right, the old ways training, um, the uke was the driver. The uke was the one that preserved the lineage. Right, the uke had a very, very, very important role. Right, not just in helping their partner get things right. Right, that's obviously a big part of it, but in setting themselves up for the higher levels of training, because they weren't just, my grandfather used to say, a lump on a log, right? Just sitting around like a lump on a log, where they were just kind of sacrificing for whatever. Okay. But people get it wrong in the other direction as well. Okay. So let's talk about that misconception first, right? So the uke, right? The uke, I'm going to start with this part right here, right? The uke is not, it's not a sparring partner. They're not. Okay. They're also not the bad guy. They're also not the victim of the technique. I know what the translation is. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. But way too many people try to approach this, even some black belts, right? They look at the uke as nothing more than a sparring partner, or worse, right? The loser in the kata, okay? Because ego wants to be the winner, right? We want to be on the winning side. Everybody wants to do that, right? We want to be the winner, okay? But a big mistake, and I talked about this during Kuden, this Monday's Kuden, on the same concept, where we tend to look at the uke tori relationship, right, as bad guy, good guy, right? The tori's the good guy because he's the defender, right? He's the one that's winning this engagement, right? The uke is the bad guy because he's the one that punched first. Now, only the way the kata is set up to discuss a solution to a given problem. But there is no statement or implication that either of those people are the good guy or the bad guy, the attacker or the defender. in the very upper levels, and I'll do that maybe in like part 3, when the uke, the name changes, right? From uke to teki, Teki, right? Teki means adversary, means enemy, the actual person that you're dealing with, right? So this person's role definitely changes, right? Still not a sparring partner, right? But it definitely changes. And so all the scrolls say, all the densho says is uke tsuki, uke zempo geri, whatever, right? Um, and then tori does XYZ, whatever. Okay, it's just a very, very base level thing. But this was something I posed during Kuden as well, right? What if it was a surprise attack, right? He gets his first shot in, you neutralize that, and you're coming in, and then he starts doing the kata. What are you supposed to do? Just freaking surrender? Okay, you didn't start this. You weren't the one who initiated, right? But right, you received the attack, and now you're throwing something back to shut this thing down. But he intercepts it. Right? See, the kata is just a place to start, and that's where we're going to start. But this part 1, you should probably write that up here. Right? So there's no confusion later. Right? Part 1 of a multi-part, and I don't know if I'm going to do them in a direct series. I don't know yet. Okay. Everybody keeps bending around Hatsumi Sensei's words of like the feeling. It's not about a feeling. It's just I have to strategically kind of lay these things out, right? And I think people are going to need some time here. So anyway, this idea that the uke is the training partner, they're the bad guy, they're the one who's supposed to lose, right? That's not only wrong, that's dead wrong. Okay. We'll look at the breakdown for the kanji here in just a bit, but the uke in this paradigm, in this keiko, just like our gi, right? One of the alternate names for the gi is a keikogi, right? Keikogi, right? Clothing for studying the old ways, right? From this context, the uke isn't an adversary, right? Are they playing the role of the adversary, the opponent, or whatever? Yes, but it's a symbiotic relationship. Okay? We're going to talk about how the uke is responsible for doing things a certain way at each level that, 1, preserves the lineage, 2, creates the life in the kata or that the kata points to, 3, helps the tori learn the why of the moves, but the uke is actually, or the one learning the why. On the tori side of the technique, we're learning the what and how. But we can't feel the technique being done to somebody, to another human body. Okay? As the uke, we can. Okay? So it is my contention, and it's the contention of past masters in this keiko lineage, that this person not only preserves the lineage and the magic and the power, but it's when we play this role that's what turns us into not just a powerful defender, not just a better and more skilled defender, a more dangerous one. Okay? Because we know what's going on inside that person's body. Okay? We know what the technique is doing to him more than just hitting, more than just trading shots, more than just doing moves. Okay? So, again, the uke isn't an adversary, right? The uke isn't there just to take falls. And I get it. Sometimes the word uke is translated as fall guy. Not true at a base level. But people tend to get stuck in certain places, right? Again, the uke actually controls the training, okay? For both the tori and for himself or herself. Don't want to eliminate the girls, right? So during this training session, I'm going to show you how, right? And while there are 3 levels at least, right, where the uke plays this role during this training, we're going to stay at the first level, okay, the foundation, where both people are training and they're not just helping each other, but they're learning very specific skill sets on each side. Okay? One of the biggest mistakes that my early teachers in this art helped people get over. I'll talk about two big ones, but there was this ancillary one where the mistake is that the uke is like punching or kicking or whatever, but they're helping the tori train, and then when they switch, it'll be their turn to practice. No, no, they're both training. They're just training different skills, right? And they're helping each other in different ways. On the foundations level, they're both helping each other with their particular skills, right? Um, that's why the kata are laid out the way they are. Like kata that, if you ever notice that, like at the end of most kata that involve a throw or something like that, right? The uke is able to take ukemi. Okay, if they're able to do a break fall or a roll or whatever. Okay, that's first level transmission training. Okay? As we go above those, the tori systematically takes away the uke's ability to take ukemi, and the uke has to learn how to do ukemi on the fly, where they're literally living to the definition of receiving and neutralizing the force of the attack. Okay, they can't do pre-described skills. They can't do gymnastics moves. They can't do. They have to like learn how to receive impact and spread that out and neutralize it so they can keep going. Or at the highest levels, take whatever injury occurs and still be able to keep going, right? That is mental and spiritual ukemi. No matter how bad things are, no matter how rough things are, no matter how much damage we've taken, if the system hasn't been shut down, we keep going. Okay. So again, different levels, different types of training. Okay. So again, this is really, really important, because if you don't get this right, this uke thing right, okay, if you don't have a good uke, right, talk about that in a minute, everything else falls apart. Everything else falls apart. Okay, so uh, as we're moving through this, if you need to, I'd like to know, where your aha moments are and all that kind of stuff. So, drop things in comments on whatever platform you're on, and I'll try to get to things later. Anyway, all right. So again, during Kuden, I mentioned two really important lessons that I got early on from teachers about the importance of uke. Okay, and so these I had never had this kind of training before. So I've been in the who's who of martial arts and self-defense programs. Nobody ever covered this way. They just assumed that, I don't know, like you're supposed to pick it up symbiotically or something. I don't know. Okay. But my teachers drilled into me about the uke, right? There are these two important pieces, right? And these are still some of the most important lessons that I've ever learned. Okay. And they're parallel lessons. Okay. They're two sides of the same truth. And I have extra space today, so I'm not going to write these things down. But if you wrote on Kuden, you already know what I'm going to say. If you weren't, no problem. Here it comes. Okay. First part of the lesson, again, they're like parallel things, right? The first part of the lesson is the most important thing that you can do for your training and progress is to find a good uke. Please notice that I did not say find a willing uke. Right? I didn't say find somebody who will like show up, because like anybody's better than nobody at all. Nope. I'd rather shadow box than have a shitty uke. Okay? And I will replace an uke if I cannot educate them about how to be a good uke. Well, sensei, but you can't like tell the guy on the street how to punch you. No, but if my skill set in this art isn't ready for the guy on the street, then guess what doesn't matter, right? What I need is a training partner who is willing and able to give me the attack and the attack dynamics and angles and things like that simulating a certain type of attacker that I'm working on, right, as authentically as possible. That's what I need. I don't need somebody that has their own agenda. I don't need somebody who's trying to win or beat the technique or whatever, right? I need somebody that is there in a cooperative partnership who wants to learn, okay? And as I found out later on, okay, that came out of lesson number 2, what I learn as an uke determines how far I can go on the mastery path later on, okay? Because it's in the receiving of the technique and understanding what it does, how it controls mind, perception, body, balance, all those kind of things that allows me to do what we all like drool over when we see the master teachers doing those things. Okay? Because we can see the step by step. We can see what they're doing with their body, the taiden. What we can't see is what's going on in their head, how they're processing the situation, their breathing, how they're firing muscles and in what order, to what extent. We can see the uke's body move and how they're getting tangled up and whatnot. We can't see how muscles are being affected, sinew connections, joints and whatnot. Psychology is being disrupted. We can't see any of that stuff. Okay? And when we can understand that we're only ever going to get 10% of our understanding from watching, from the taiden, from the demonstration, okay? From that obvious taiden, right? Watching them demonstrate the technique, I'm only going to get 10%. Okay? I'm going to get way more than half the technique by being the uke, not just with my training partner. That's why you will always see me volunteer to be the uke for the teacher. Okay? So, first lesson is the most important thing you can do is to find a good uke, right? And if you can't find one, you teach your partners how to be a good uke. Right? You educate them as to how to be a good uke. If you don't know, well, then you're going to have to find out. Okay? You create the environment that you need. Okay? This is important, right? You create the environment. You create the experience. This is a huge thing in Ninpo Mikyo, right? This whole life mastery kind of thing. Right? Instead of waiting for life to give you the situations and experiences for you to practice your new skills to get good at things and hoping you're mindful in the moment, you don't miss an opportunity or whatever, is you go out of your way to generate the experiences that you need to have to work through problems, get good at things, whatever. Okay? Instead of avoiding conflict, if I'm averse to conflict or if I need to learn how to neutralize things, work with certain personality types, right? Going to do things, or I'm not going to back down from those things because it gives me an opportunity to train. As I covered in Kuden, right? We're always training. Or maybe it wasn't Kuden. Sorry, last night's inner circle class. Right? We were talking about how everything in everything is training. Everything in Ninjutsu is training. Everything in life, right? Or it's an opportunity to train, not just the dojo. Right. Anyway, lesson number 2. Right. So find a good uke. Right. And I promise you, you're going to go through lots of bodies to find a good uke, or before you can create one. Right? One of the best reasons to start a training group and bring people in and teach them certain things and whatnot is not so you can do things in the beginning. It's to teach them the skill sets they need to give you what you need so you can work on your stuff. Way too many people get that backwards. High-level instructors as well. They use class time for their own practice time, and then they confuse or drive away well-meaning students that feel like punching bags. Okay? So the second lesson, the parallel lesson, is the most important thing you can do to learn the other half, the hidden side of the training, is to become a good uke. Right? That's where the seeds of mastery really get planted. Okay? So one side, right, developing or finding a good uke, right, is giving yourself what you need externally, right, outside yourself, right? And the other, becoming a good uke, right, is about what you need for internal work, right? And together, these are the 2 rails that your progress rides on, okay? In the classical sense, the uke is the one who preserves the lineage, the training, okay? But everybody gets it backwards. Okay? Because the tori looks like the winner and everybody wants to be the winner, they focus on one while dismissing the other. but the quality of the other determines not just the quality of the defender, the tori, right, the defender, right, but also the skill set and level and understanding and development that uke has an opportunity to pick up on. Right. So anyway, if this is valuable, if any of these things are valuable and whatnot, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever platform you're on. Do that stuff. Right. Helps us out. Helps other people who are looking for training like this, and it helps you because the algorithms on the different platforms will single you out to make sure that things get shared. I don't know how many people know this, but at least on Facebook and other platforms like that, because they want to make a lot of money off of ad sales and stuff like that, right? Only 6 to 17% of the people that like or follow me or anybody else, right, see anything that person posts. They don't see everything, okay? So the way to guarantee that you're getting more is to engage. And then that way the algorithm knows, okay, you can be in the 6%, you can be in the 17%, whatever. But if you don't do that, then it's hit and miss. Literally, no pun intended. Okay? All right, so let's do this. We're going to take a little break here, and we're going to take a look at the kanji for uke. Okay? So uke is a noun, right? For those of you that don't like English language lessons or any language lessons or whatever, right? It's a noun. It's known as a gerund, if you care. Right? What that means is it's a verb that was turned into a noun. Okay, that's a person, place, or thing. Okay, so uke, right, literally means. Make sure I didn't screw this up. Right. So uke, receiver. Right. So receiver. It also means acceptor. Okay. It also means the one who takes in. Okay, the one who takes in, which is really important for warriors, right? Right. So, one who takes in. Okay. So, in part, uke is about sacrifice because it's not about you. Okay. It's that warrior side of things where we're taking on the negativity and the problems and whatnot that somebody else can't. Okay, we're being the protector. Okay, so again, literal meaning: receiver, acceptor, the one who takes in. So this is the noun form, and it's derived from the verb ukeru. Okay, Japanese is a verb-driven language. Okay, so from ukeru. Okay, then this little piece right here, this is ryu. So if we were pronouncing this is the root kanji. If you were just in like China, which is where the kanji come from, right? Be looking at this, but the Japanese modify things so we know, right? Ukuru, right? So sometimes in Hatsumi Sensei's books that are written in Japanese and in other Japanese books and whatnot, you'll see major kanji. And then what you'll see is the kana for pronouncing that. So you know whether you're doing the on reading or the kun reading, the Japanese pronunciation or the Chinese pronunciation. And you'll see these things that tag after it, the kana, that you wouldn't see in written Chinese because this is our conjugation, right? So ukeru is the verb, right? It's the root meaning to receive, to accept, to take upon oneself. Also, I'll just add this to the list, right? To undergo. Okay? To undergo, right? So in daily Japanese, right, it can mean like taking an exam, right? It can mean receiving a message or instruction, okay? It can mean undergoing hardship or an experience, right? So there's a little nuance to it that it implies willingly undergoing or accepting something, not simply being passive, okay? So the uke is willingly taking on certain responsibilities to help both the tori and themselves advance an understanding. Okay? By implication, they're also taking on the responsibility for the correct transmission of the art to the next generation. Okay? So some social implications of this in this receiver oriented kind of thing, right? Uh, Anybody who's been there extensively, right, knows this or has been there many times. Lots of people go for training, but they hang out with Westerners and they hang out at the guest house unless they're going to eat, and then they eat with Westerners and whatnot. So I'm not sure how many are actually going there to study the social and cultural kind of dynamics that this art was born from, right? I know it was imported from China, but it's not a Chinese reflection of the art. Okay? So Japan is a receiver oriented culture. What that means is that humility and acceptance are valued traits, sometimes in direct opposition with Westerners. Right? So, not knocking Westerners, I'm a Westerner, right? But when I'm in Japan, okay, I'm trying to get as close to being Japanese as possible, even though I won't. Although they want to know which part of my family, mom or dad, were Japanese because my eyes look like this. It's a Native American thing, not an Asian thing. Anyway, so Ukadu is tied to to concepts of Goman. Gaman, right? Gaman is enduring. Okay, Wa, harmony, and On or Giri, which is obligations and debts of gratitude, like somebody owes somebody something. Okay, so someone who receives well, right, is seen as adaptable, flexible, and cooperative, right? Qualities highly prized in social interaction, right? Even slang, ukuru can mean that's funny, right? Or I accept or I'm entertained, okay? Reflecting this emphasis on receptivity, paying attention, okay? How to be a good friend, how to be a good member of the cultural group, that kind of thing, okay? Um, Martial arts implications, right? The receiver of a technique, strike, lock, throw, right? But again, this is where we run into problems as Westerners because we look at the kata or we look at the technique and we see the one standing as the winner and the one on the ground as the loser, right? But this idea of uke runs way, way deeper than the uke being the victim, right? Shouldn't have punched him, wouldn't end up on the ground. See, but why was he punching? Okay, because we're talking about an uke. We're not talking about a teki. A teki is an opponent. A teki is an adversary. A teki is an enemy. In the upper levels, these terms, including tori, blur. But in the beginning, we have to be very, very definitive about these things. Otherwise, it will skew our training. Okay? It's also not a fashionable discussion because I'm not talking about specific techniques, which is why I don't know if you can see the numbers on your end. This particular episode doesn't have a lot of people showing up, which I guess it's one way that you keep the art hidden because right, this is critical. Right? Matter of fact, I have a quote in here somewhere. I'll get to it that Nagata Sensei has that points to this stuff, especially at this level. Right? So responsibilities of the uke in martial arts, right, include things like receiving the technique with sincerity and resilience. What the hell does that mean? I'll talk about some skill sets here in a minute, right? Through receiving, he or she learns why techniques work, not just how, right? And they end up developing much better ukemi, right? Receiving, receiving body, uke, right? Receiver, receiving, right? Ukeru, right? And then mi, it's the same kanji as the kanji for tai in taijutsu, body. Okay, so ukemi, receiving body. Right? So again, we all know this, right? It's the art of falling, rolling, absorbing impact safely, those kind of things. Okay, but again, the implied role in keiko, right? Always practice. The uke is responsible for the success of training, for the training for the tori, right? The uke's choice to receive teaches humility, sacrifice, adaptability. I've also been taught that it teaches bravery, or it brings out bravery. Teachers looking around for an uke, right? I remember being in one long time ago. This was way back in late 80s, early 90s. And we were doing some hard training. And teacher was looking around for an uke, right? And I and one of my peers stepped forward at the same time, right? And he was just ahead of me. And I said, all right, you can go this time, okay? And the teacher called this out. He said, people are worried about being the uke, right? One, that was a sign of bravery, okay? Because they already know it's going to hurt. They already know what they're in for. They don't know what the technique is. They know what they're in for, but that shows the willingness to learn because they know that unless they feel it, they're not going to fully understand the technique. It's the yin and yang. One side, you're doing the moves. The other side, you're understanding why the moves are what they are and what they're doing inside that bubble, right? You're learning and experiencing what's invisible to everybody else, what they're going to end up assuming. And that's why there's all this trial and error going on, because they keep trying different things, but they don't know what they're supposed to be producing, right? I mean, they know the end result, but they don't know what produces that. Okay, so and then at higher levels, again, the uke evolves into teki, enemy, the adversary, right? And this is where they offer resistance and help to pressure test the techniques to expose the errors in the tori's movement, stuff like that. They're countering things, that kind of stuff, right? Not early on, right? Not early on, right? So again, just to kind of reiterate this very quickly before we move into these responsibilities and kind of set up the Friday masterclass, uke doesn't mean punching bag, okay? It literally means receiver, right? The one who chooses to accept, endure, and learn, right? Again, in Japanese society, that is a valued trait, okay? So in martial arts, this is the hidden side of training, right? It's the most highly overlooked side of training, okay? So if you're not willing to be the uke, if you're not mindfully engaged in that role, then you can't possibly unlock the I don't know, we'll call it the secrets, even though I don't think they're secrets. Okay. So anyway, where am I here? Okay. So let's do this. We'll take a look at responsibilities of the uke. I've got it split. We're going to take a look at tori focused. So that's the uke's job and responsibilities to help the tori learn. Okay. And then we're going to take a look at us focused when we're the uke, right? What are our responsibilities? Because that improves our skills. This side, everybody wants to improve their skills because they all want to be the winner. Right? Talk about that more here in a minute. But this is where we're helping. Okay? This is where we're understanding. And the stuff we learned here, we take back to when we're the tori. And that makes us way better over here. Okay? So, again, responsibilities for the tori, right? So we're going to look at this first, right? The uke's responsibility is to give the tori an authentic experience of an attack, not just throw whatever they want. Okay, the number of times I've heard a student say in class where we're demonstrating something, let's say we're working against like a Western style boxer, and they throw like a certain type of hook punch, or we do the classical tsuki, right? Because it takes the center line. There's a science to that, why it's done that way, whatever, right? And a student will go, "Well, I wouldn't punch like that." And my response is, "I don't care." That usually throws them off. But I don't care because we're not defending against you. We're defending against the guy on the street who does punch like this. And if we can't make that distinction, if somebody's playing the role of the uke doesn't understand that they're just going along with things because, they really know stuff, well, then they're not paying attention to what's going on, right? They're training resentfully and they're waiting for their turn, right? If we don't understand that the uke's job is to simulate a certain type of attack from a certain type of an attacker, everything from posturing to how that comes in and how it unfolds. No, they're not doing Ninpo Taijutsu, Budo Taijutsu. They're doing what somebody else does. So it's not about whether or not I would punch like that. It's about the person I'm simulating that the tori is learning a defense against. It's huge, huge. Okay. So that means that when the uke is in helping mode, right, that they are a part of that experience and help comes in the form of a posture and attack, right, that matches a real fighter who uses that style. Okay? Because a Muay Thai guy doesn't stand like, right, American Taekwondo karate kind of guy, doesn't stand, right, like somebody who's Western style boxer, who doesn't stand like somebody who's a little bit more on the old school British kind of thing, right? Who doesn't, right? Right? Different type of grabbers, grapplers, right? We could be defending against this guy just like flailing. Well, it's stupid. Who would do that? Look it up on YouTube. Okay. There's lots of street videos. Right. What if we're up against that guy? Right. Are we going to just automatically assume that we can kick his ass because he doesn't know how to, he doesn't. I've heard martial arts teachers in this art and outside this art use that bullshit. Okay. We're going to defend against somebody today who doesn't know how to punch, right? Because we know how to do it like this, right? Not that if he hits you, it won't hurt you, but like, we're going to be more scientific about it. He's probably laid some people out with those punches that he doesn't know how to do, right? So again, it makes ego feel good if we can neutralize a threat that we know nothing about. But wait, be careful, okay? So we are authentically, right? As authentically as possible, getting as close to the way that's research, right? Looking up these things, looking up postures. I don't care if it's still photographs, video, right? Video from old 8mm movie stuff and whatnot. Watching these guys kind of move, right? And then simulating that, okay? Creating the actual angle, shape, and delivery of the attack. Right? Angle, shape, and delivery. Okay? Not my way of doing it. Right? Previous camp here just recently, I had one of my guys. He's been in Taekwondo and some Korean style martial arts and stuff his entire life. Right? I had him do 2 breakout sessions. They were connected by the same kick. Very popular kick. Somebody learns it very, very early on and whatnot. But the first breakout session was focused on teaching students how to do that kick properly based on that style. Was that so that the students could fight that way? No. It's so the students could be a good uke and were working a defense against that kick. The tori is going to see an authentic kick coming at them that they would see by that kind of stylist on the street, not some crippled, broke-ass version of it that they're never going to see unless it's from somebody that you probably don't have to worry about. Okay? But the second breakout session was focused on understanding the opposite, not the advantages, but the disadvantages, the openings, the weaknesses in that kick. It's the second one that was designed to defend against it. Guess which one people paid attention to most? Okay. But the first breakout session was to become a good tori. To become a good uke. The second one was to be better at the tori side, same kick, 2 perspectives. Okay. So we want to get this as close as possible because if I'm throwing something at my partner that they would never see from that guy on the street, then I'm helping my tori not develop good skills. I'm helping them develop shitty taijutsu, but more importantly, shitty taijutsu against and shitty options against something they'll never see. So we're doing all this training so that they can develop skills that aren't going to work against somebody who's really good. Whatever we pick, shoot fighter, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay. And then the third thing is a real natural body response to each move that gets applied. Okay. So So I'll give you a heads up here. If you're in my Ninpo Masterclass, if you're in any of my Inner Circle programs, Shinobi Kai, Ninpo Elite, Ninpo Mastery, that kind of thing, for this Friday's Masterclass, here's the link, right? One of the things we're going to be working on is understanding the effects of certain uke-uchi, okay? The circular one, the swatting one, chopping one, right? So what we're going to be doing is creating the knowledge and understanding so that the uke can do this, okay? And what this involves is one person who's playing the role of the uke, the receiver, is they're going to sacrifice their arm to the cause. Right? See if I can knock my shit over here, right? So they're going to be in that end position that their arm would be in when contact is made. And then the tori, we'll probably use some gloves, right? The tori is going to boom, hit that thing, right? Not soft training, to knock it into position. Angled, down angled, lateral, straight down. So that they can not just, the uke, it might hurt. Yeah, okay. But what they need to understand is what a properly applied or what power in this thing does to the body. So then when we go back to partner training, and they're the uke, when your partner does soft training and delivers the uke-uchi, I know where that arm is supposed to go, and I know what that pull on the shoulder does to the torso, does to the balance and whatnot, so I can simulate that. Because ultimately, if I'm a shitty uke, the tori, my training partner has three options, right? One, find a different one. Let's say that it's just he and I in class. Shit, okay, now what? Okay. Well, his other two options are he either does his moves and I simulate that thing, or he does his moves in a way that creates it. My choice. I can simulate it, or he can just freaking hit it harder and do what needs to be done. Because if I, as the uke, don't simulate the correct attack, the rest of the kata doesn't fucking matter, because the rest of the kata was based on the physiological response of each shot, not just landing, but doing naturally to the body what it does. Body, mind, whatever. Okay? So are we just doing dance choreography? Is it just going to be a dead kata? Or are the dynamics involved? Okay? So on the tori focused thing, it's my job as the uke to give them an authentic experience, not just in delivery, right? From setup to delivery, right? But also when they do uke nagashi, uke-uchi, uke-dome, whatever it is, right? That next counter, right? Understanding how to physiologically move correctly and not just do some jerk water freaking flinch response, okay? And that's what I meant by we either find an uke, a good uke, or we create a good uke. And sometimes to create a good uke, sometimes in class, if the uke doesn't understand, right? Not yelling and barking at him or anything like that. I'm like, it's obvious that you don't understand how this works. So we're doing Jumonji no Kata, boom. What is that Boshiken to Butsumetsu do? well, it makes them like wince from pain. It's way more than that, right? It locks their spine at a certain spot. It immobilizes their feet. It gives you a window for escape. Okay, so you need some experience. So, bink, bink, bink. And once they get their head off of ow, ow, and start paying attention to, yeah, it friggin' hurts here, maybe, unless the guy's jacked on some kind of drugs. Right? We already talked about not relying on pain. That was in a different Whiteboard Wednesday, right? But what does the body do? How is it moving? Do I understand that the body physiologically, its defense mechanism pulls it or anything that's being threatened on it 180 degrees from away from danger based on the impact line? Being impacted this way makes it move one way. Being impacted this way makes it move a different way. Okay, and then later you can translate that into grappling things and applying Kyusho attacks and whatnot, right? To get them to move in certain directions. Okay? But you only learn that from the uke side. Okay? Because the tori can't feel the effect of the technique. They're just going through the motions and learning that part. I need to be able to simulate it so that when he does uke uch, that arm goes where it's supposed to go, so that in real time later on in upper levels, if he delivers an uke nagash or an uke uch right to that arm and it doesn't move the way it's supposed to, and certain indicators on the body don't appear, he knows he doesn't have an opening. Right? He's not just doing shit because that's what the official. Right? You can't do kata on the street. Right? You can't do kata in the dojo either if the uke isn't a good uke. Okay. All right. So one of my teachers used to say this was like being a highly paid stuntman in a high budget action film. Okay. What that means is that, right, we always know when we see a stuntman or a scene or whatever where, punch comes in and, it's supposed to knock the head that way. And either the guy moves too soon or whatever, right? Or you can see it go by and then he moves late or he moves into it, right? Whatever, right? Okay. Or when it's done correctly, it looks like these guys are actually freaking laying each other out. We know that because we're going, oh man, that was, even though they missed each other by inches or a foot or more, it was the camera angle that kind of helped out. But that stuntman is paid the big bucks to look like this. Okay. And that reminds me of Nagato Sensei's quote, right? If you punch like a bad actor, then you'll get bad taijutsu. Not just from the uke, right? Not just from the tori, right? But your own. Okay. If you attack like a movie extra, right? Like a cheap stand-in kind of thing, right? Your partner's skill is going to be garbage, right? But if you attack like the stuntman, trained, precise, committed, right? That kind of thing. Now that tori gets something real to work with at whatever speed you're doing. Okay. And I get it. I mentioned this earlier. Okay. Everybody wants to be the good guy. So everybody really pays attention when they're the tori. And then they can't understand why the technique's not working. Okay. They're going through the moves. They got the guy by the elbow and they got it on their shoulder and whatever. Why is it not working? Right? Uke knows. Unless he's clueless too. He's just letting you do your shit. So whenever you stop, dude, it'll be my turn. Okay? So everybody wants to be the winner. Okay? Everybody wants to be the one who looks good, the one who ends up on top, that kind of thing. I get it. It's natural, right? But that's the problem also. Okay? It shows we don't really understand the role of uke, right? Or the need to be one ourselves. Right? So from the outside, we're looking at a kata, we're looking at the teacher's demonstration and whatnot, right? Looks like fighting. Okay? So people assume someone is winning and someone is losing. But like most things in Ninjutsu, it's not what it looks like. Okay? Especially for the uke. The uke isn't losing. The uke is controlling the training and learning the hidden lessons that being the tori can't. Right? Can't teach them, can't learn. Okay? really important to understand. Okay? So if we get this paradigm right, you will see you'll see not only your training change, but you're going to see your understanding of the techniques and how quickly and more easily and whatnot you're moving with things. Okay, so anyway, again, I got Sensei's quote. Right, if you punch like a bad actor, or kick like a bad actor, grab like a bad, if you attack like a bad actor, you get bad taijutsu. Okay, so let's look at the uke focused side of the responsibilities. Okay. So again, when we're the uke, this is for us. See, this makes it seem like we have to sacrifice for the other person until it's my turn. Okay? No. Okay? As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I have this in my notes or not, but I talked about this a little bit during Kude. When I get this right, and I can do this authentically, what I'm actually doing is paying it forward with my training. Because in our curriculum, training for third degree black belt, okay, involves getting him to attack me the way I want so that I can do the technique I need to put him where I need to as quickly as possible. Right? Law enforcement, security, whatever. Right? If I need this guy on his face so I can easily put him into handcuffs and whatnot, then I need to be moving to the outside of a punch so that that's one that's overextended, his balance is broken and whatnot, so I can catch him and just kind of scoop him into the ground. Okay? No fighting, no whatever. If he lands on his side, things are facing me, I need to struggle to get him down, face down, all those kind of things, right? So most people think that's done by force or magic, right? It's actually done by presenting things in a way where he'll take a target because he's already assumed that I'm a certain type of fighter and he won't expect the thing that I'm doing. This one also is when I get really, really good at these and simulating other fight styles, I'm going to be really good at Kyojutsu Tenkan Ho, disguising truth and falsehood, and Henso Jutsu, disguising impersonation, because I don't want to show my secrets. I want to show other things so that in his head, he goes, oh, I know that fighter. I know how to deal with that. Okay. And then when he comes in to deal with that guy, I turn into ninja guy and do taijutsu. So he'll be wrong when he gets there. When I throw these combined with this, so just starting off, being able to posture, people make assumptions. If I throw a couple of shots or a couple of kicks or whatever that look like certain attackers, right, that really cinches the deal. Because most people are not in control of their mind. And for most people, the human mind is an assumptive processor. They only need a cue or two to jump to an assumption. So I'm going to give them those. And I developed that skill in the first phase when I'm helping my tori understand how the techniques work. Okay? So same thing, right? Here, this is ukemi in the fight. Okay? So I learned this a long time ago when I was learning escapes for takeori. Okay? So things being put on and we're learning how to get out and they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Right? That works. Right? Same thing with mushadori, onikudaki, whatever. Okay? But it's not that there isn't some risk to that. Okay? But if I do a lot of stretching and I increase my range of motion beyond what most people's is, okay, then I've got some wiggle room. So again, for that deception, escaping lock holds and throws and stuff that we have for our Sandan people, that standard, right? If I understand how to simulate natural response, okay, like lots and lots of flexibility, yes? But most people do not, okay? So when he applies this at the point where most people, right, that's what I'm going to do. When I get to here, I'm going to stiffen up the wrist, and then I can let it fold and I can get out. Because he thinks he has me. Same thing with these other techniques. If I can simulate the you have me response and what that looks like when it's actually taken, then he thinks he already has me. That changes his mindset, and he's going to be surprised when I let my flexibility go farther, and then I can get out. Okay? Sneaky ninja bastard shit. Okay. Anyway, all right, let's get over here to the uke's responsibility for his own training. I already started to give you these things. Okay. If I can get these, okay. So, but this is projecting forward for advanced stuff. It seems like we're sacrificing. We're not sacrificing, right? Anything more than my freaking ego so that I can help him and I can see farther than my own damn present experience. I understand. Doesn't mean the world hasn't been continuing on before I showed up and will after I'm long since rotted in the ground. Right? So let's flip the lens. Okay. So what's in it for the uke? Right? I already started on this. Okay. So why does this matter for you when you're being a good uke? Right? So first, you're not just helping your partner, right? You're mimicking different types of fighters. Boxers, kickers, grabbers, brawlers, okay? So that higher levels, again, right? We are pre-training for higher level skills, right? Kyojutsu, right? Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood. Henso Jutsu, disguise and impersonation. Henso Jutsu, right? All kinds of stuff, okay? Guiding his perceptions, right, of reality, those kind of things. Interesting stuff, okay? You're learning to act like someone else so you can later use that to your advantage. If I never get good at this, then when I try to psych him out with it, or I'm never going to think about it, but my teacher goes, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to convince him that he's this, that you're this. So when he comes in with that jab, right cross, or jab, uppercut kind of thing, we're going to slip into this. Well, why can't I just like stand in Shizen or stand in because you're jamming up his ability to do a jab, uppercut, or jab, right cross. If you've been paying attention when you were the tori in the upper levels, we're choosing our kamae as matches, not even matches, as disruptors to what he wants and needs to be able to do, right? He has a certain stance because that allows him to do what he does quickly and easily. But if I choose my kamae to put things in the way so he can't do what he does easily, he has to deviate by trying to like break my kamae so he can get back to doing what he normally does, or he has to figure out something else on the fly because he can't use his normal preferred shit, which means he's going to be slower. He's just all kinds of cool shit, right? So, but if I wait until I'm second dan working on third dan before I start working on that stuff, how much time did I just waste getting really, really good at simulating a boxer or a taekwondo guy or a barroom brawler, whatever, okay? So anyway, right? Second, you are building body awareness. Okay? Building body awareness, actually from all of us. Okay? Every time you feel, on the obvious side, every time you feel a lock, a strike, or a throw, right? You learn exactly what that move does to the human body. Okay? That, my friends, makes you far more dangerous when you're the tori. Not because you have to do things harder or faster because you don't understand them, but because you do understand them and you understand targeting and you understand what you're going to get. So I don't need to chase the guy down anymore. I just need to create situations that his response will put the next body part in place. Okay. One exercise for understanding the kata better is to reverse engineer it. Okay. So instead of paying attention to the move I'm doing right now, right, first I learn it, right? And then instead of worrying about the punch that's coming in and just moving offline and doing uke nagash, I'm going to move ahead of the uke nagash to the next thing I'm supposed to hit, grab, or catch. So now, what's the right angle? What's the right form of uke nagash? Whatever that once I've executed it and things open, I'm lined up, and that is the next obvious thing. And then ahead of that, how do I approach and grab that? What do I do with it? So the next thing is easier. The next thing is easier, right? So we look at the thing ahead and determine what we have to do. That's tori training. But if we have a shitty uke who, like, they're pain averse, right? So every time we're about to do something, okay, well, like, you don't have to worry about defending yourself and protecting your life or the lives of others from somebody that if you threaten to poke him, he's going to run away. That's as Ishizuka Sensei used to say, I don't need 1,000 or 2,000-year-old secrets to defend against crap. Okay, so again, this is about the body awareness kind of stuff, right? So I need to know not the how. This teaches me the why. Why does the kata work? Why does, instead of just looking at it and going, well, nobody fights like that, it wouldn't work. Right? Really? Okay, well, go find something else. Tic-tac-toe is waiting. Show the taken, students. Okay? So, and the third thing that it does is you're sharpening your ukemi. Right? Better ukemi. Most people just associate ukemi with rolls and leaps and break falls and things like that. And it's not true. That's in the ukemi category. But to have a receiving body, what you're really learning is how to receive and neutralize the force of an attack or the force of impact, whether it's from a fist, a headbutt, or landing on the floor. Okay? So you end up with better ukemi, right? At first, way back in my training, Hatsumi Sensei used to say that ukemi was about becoming hard to break. Okay? But over time, ukemi evolves into sutemi. Sutemi means to sacrifice. It doesn't mean to give up. It means to give up a bad situation for a better one. So if we can think about our break falls and things like that, most people are still doing break falls in a gymnastics kind of way. And I get it if you're just learning them. But we need to graduate past that and literally be knocked off balance. Or if you're willing to do it, if you're a solo training student, literally fall until your balance breaks and then do it from there. Because you really can't do a break fall if you're not falling. Literally falling. That's a break fall. Okay? And if you get it wrong, well, then you fall and break. English is cool that way, right? Anyway, so you learn sutemi and you learn ryusu iki. That was the term I was introduced to it. Ryusu iki means flowing like water. Okay, so the ability to go with things, right? So ukemi stops being just about survival, right? It becomes a way to reverse the situation, and then eventually in the upper levels, it becomes a way to attack when the opponent least expects it. Okay, right in the middle of a throw, boom, he gets hit. That causes him to collapse. You're back out. Those kind of things. Okay, so this makes up an important part of training, especially for my students going for Sandan. I talked about this quite a bit, right? The ability to not only escape from, but also to counter any lock, hold, or throw. Yeah, but Sensei, what about the ones that you can't get out of? And then we're way up here, okay? Because in that case, I'm going to break the joint he's trying to control, and then I'm going to kill him, and then I'm going to go get myself fixed. That's sacrificing structure. That's sacrificing comfort. That's sacrificing conventional sanity and rationale, because it's the last thing he would expect. Let me help you with that. That's the lessons I got from Hatsumi Sensei and all those master teachers. Sometimes the way out is you have to break the thing he's trying to control, because if it's broken, he can't control it the same way. Now I'm pissed off. Now I'm driven by a higher level of rage. I'm going to finish him, and then I'm going to go get myself patched up. Okay? That's also ukemi. Okay? This ukemi mastery makes up the majority, the rolling and all that kind of stuff, right? Makes up the majority of the first part of training in the Genbukan, at least when I was getting some lessons from them and whatnot, right? And it certainly made up the entire first year of training. If you know the Takamasa Sensei story, right? His nickname in school, kids used to ride him around like a horse and stuff. His nickname in school was Crybaby. I know. Well, that's kind of shitty, man. He's like our hero. Well, yeah, he became our hero. But he was his weakling. He was bullied. His nickname was Crybaby, all that kind of shit. And Dad complained about it. What do I do to fix this thing? How do I toughen this boy up? And Grandpa says, send him to the dojo. I'll fix it. Okay? And for the first year of that boy's life, he better show up to the dojo. Grandpa show up at his house, and now that's the dojo. Okay? Every day for an hour or more, every day for a year, he was thrown, knocked, and whatnot to the ground to learn ukemi, to become hard to break. In the beginning, still crying. Doesn't matter. Get up. Here we go again. Right? So you learned it, and now you're going to be doing it. Okay? So I think that's pretty interesting. But let me ask you a question. Seriously, honestly, right? If that was the thing today, if that was the way training was done today, okay, with most people's focus on wanting to learn the good stuff, right, on winning fights, on being the hero, okay, how many do you think would actually stay in training? Okay? Or they would quit because of boredom, or I'm not putting up with this bullshit, or whatever. Okay? So, but see, that's the difference between a Western mindset and that Japanese mindset I talked about earlier, where if you're going to do it, you willingly took it on. Actually, I don't think Takuma Sensei willingly took it on. He willingly took it on because he was going to get his ass whipped or whatever at home, or he was going to having to keep putting up with the shit that the school kids were putting him through and stuff like that. So pick your poison, right? Pick your poison. So anyway, one last little story here. What kind of time do I have? All right, one last little story here before we kind of round this out is a bunch of years ago, right? I was working at a cannery. I'd just gotten out of the military. I was working a temp job at a local factory to just pay the bills while I was setting up my dojo and my private investigation agency. And this guy that I often had lunch with, he worked in a different department. I come in from my break and I sit down and his arm's in a sling. I'm like, what the hell happened to you? Okay. So I knew that, like, I had my training group, but I knew that this guy trained at a Kung Fu group that was at the local YMCA, right? And he goes, we're working on a technique last night and like a junior student threw me wrong. I'm like, define wrong. Like, how'd you get thrown wrong? And they're like, well, like they were doing this throw and I thought they were going to take me over one shoulder. Right? Actually, he was describing the throw and I went, okay, yeah, working so far. Yeah. Well, and then they like broke my balance. Okay, yeah, working so far. Okay, doesn't sound wrong yet, right? And then, well, and here's the crux, right? I thought they were going to throw me over one shoulder, and they ended up throwing me over the other shoulder, and I wasn't ready for it, and crashed down on my shoulder. I'm like, they didn't throw you wrong. Your break falls need work. We didn't have lunch together for a while after that, right? Because again, ego was the other person's fault, right? But he was the senior student. And I don't mean by a little bit, by a lot, okay? And so who was off? The uke, because they were not receiving the throw. They were not getting information about the thing that was happening so that they could do the appropriate roll or break fall in the right direction based on the throw and what was being executed to their body, right? They were not receiving and neutralizing the force of the attack. So they were highly offended when I said, sounds like the throw worked just fine. Sounds like the problem was in the break fall. Yeah, but I understand how you're trying to get around this thing, but you already told me you assumed you were going in one direction, but they took you in another. Then you weren't paying attention to what was happening. You were paying attention to what you thought was going to happen, and you executed on that, not reality. Okay? So it is what it is, right? Be a good uke, right? So again, this is the other half of training. Okay? Being the uke. As far as I'm concerned, and my teachers as well, this is the important half of training. Okay? So during this session, right, we've looked at the first level of being an uke, right? First level of this particular side of things, right? So I hope that you can see that being the uke isn't being a sparring partner. It's not being a victim. It's not being the loser in the engagement. It's not waiting for your turn. It is your turn. Both people are training. They're just training different skills. Okay. The uke controls the training. Okay. For the tori, they provide authenticity. Okay. For themselves, they're building adaptability, resilience, and the hidden side of mastery, those skills that they're going to need for manipulating situations farther down the line. Okay. So in a future session, when we pull out part 2, we'll go deeper into how uke's role evolves beyond just receiving into the hot stages of training and how they're responsible for helping to break the kata so that henka can be developed, and not just randomly, but predictably, right? And playing around with different variations of an attack type, those kind of things, right? In order to help the tori to be able to adapt more. Okay, in the first stage of training, the training's about me. Okay, if I were the tori, it's about me. Like, where do I put my foot? Where do I put my hand? Whatever. Okay. For the uke, it's okay. How is he taking me? Where's that going? At what point do I put my hand down, do the roll if that's it, or the break fall, or whatever it is, right? Okay. It's about me. How do I do this thing that I'm supposed to be doing? The high level of training, the training's about him and adapting to him. The upper level of training, it's about both of us and feeling that breath of the fight, feeling the experience and where things are going, because we're going to be trading back and forth. Who's the tori, which means to take, to grab, to seize, just like mushadori, musodori, right? Just tori, toreru, right? But it's still the same dori in those other techniques, right? To take, to catch, to seize, that kind of thing, right? We're back and forth. If he's applying something to me, then I'm receiving and neutralizing. If I'm applying something to him, then I'm trying to take, I'm trying to catch, I'm trying to, right? So there's a back and forth breath. Okay. So anyway, before we wrap up, right? If this opened your eyes a little bit, hit the like button, share this with your friends, training partner that might need it, right? And of course, like and subscribe, right? So you don't miss anything next, right? And remember, this week's Friday masterclass, we'll actually train through this together. We're going to do some drills, some exercises and whatnot, physically applying these principles so that you can feel and see the difference between a dead uke and a good one, right? So that's it for now, right? Go, right? Reserve your spot, okay?